Won in the Jersey fishing war, the French head home, but the fight is far from finished. They had blockaded the island's main harbour in protest at post-Brexit quotas and rules, to the anger and the disappointment of Jersey's fishing fleet.
It's a real shame that it's got to this stage. There is solidarity between the fishing community of Jersey and France. There has been for years.
Tonight, the Royal Navy is still patrolling Jersey's waters. We have the very latest on the simmering tensions. Also tonight, Britain's bounce back, how the economy is set to soar post-pandemic. Why Israel is hoping to be this summer's hottest holiday destination. Suits You Sir, the tailor who's back from retirement to dress Britain's finest.
This is the ITV Evening News with Mary Nightingale.
Good evening. Furious French fishermen clashed with locals today as they blockaded Jersey's main port in a row over access rights. In tense scenes, two vessels collided as attempts were made to stop the protest. Well, the French are angry over new post-Brexit licences, which they say stop them fishing in British waters. Around 60 French boats were involved in the blockade. They've now headed home, leaving in their wake a simmering row which has not been resolved. From Jersey, Rupert Evelyn has the latest.
A flotilla of fishing boats appeared just after dawn. A fiery French fleet, intent on making their feelings known. One Jersey-based boat seemingly tried to steer them off course. The damage perhaps more to pride than possessions. The French faced no more resistance and continued in number towards their target. The port of St Helier, and a blockade preventing the Channel Islands supply ship from leaving. The Royal Navy, tasked to this island yesterday, watched on from a distance as the French invasion of this harbour succeeded in trapping the large ship inside. The problem, he says, is that Jersey wants to extend its waters, and he added that means that some French boats have been prevented from fishing. Jersey put up a theatrical show of defiance. But the French were undeterred, focused instead on their post-Brexit frustrations. New rules compel French fishers to prove they have a history of working in Jersey's waters to gain a licence, but some have failed to provide the evidence, leaving them to fish only in EU waters.
This is clearly a marked escalation in the simmering tensions between Jersey and France. The French are furious that they haven't got the same fishing access that they once had, and they're making their point.
France and Jersey are 14 miles apart, and there is sympathy here for the French position.
It's a real shame that it's got to this stage. We are so close to France. There is solidarity between the fishing community of Jersey and France. There has been for years.
Jersey sent a minister to talk to the French. We overheard them say rules are rules, but Jersey is willing to be sensible.
No more blockades?
I don't know. It is up to them. We opened the dialogue and we are very, very happy to talk with them, to keep talking with them. Again, we want to recreate a liaison committee so that we can have this dialogue going on. It's up to them to decide whether they're satisfied for today.
The blockade eventually made way, but whether the French are satisfied with the outcome will depend on whether or not they return. In Paris tonight, they've said that they will remain vigilant to ensure that the Brexit agreement is held to account as they expect it. Whereas in London, they are saying the situation is resolved and the Royal Navy are preparing to leave. Will the French fishermen be back? Well, I think it's safe to assume that if they don't get the rights that they feel are rightfully theirs, the answer is probably yes. OK, Rupert Evelyn in Jersey, thank you.
The Bank of England says the UK economy is set to bounce back at a rate not seen since the end of the Second World War. The upbeat forecast also predicts unemployment won't be as bad as feared. But the bank's governor admitted it would only return the economy to its 2019 level. And as our economics editor Joel Hills reports, many businesses fear what will happen at the end of furlough.
Things are looking up in Southampton and across the UK. The buzz is returning to high streets. Hairdressers can't cut fast enough. Shops are welcoming their customers back. Spending was always going to rebound quickly when restrictions eased, but the vitality of the recovery has surprised even the Bank of England.
It is very good news that we're certainly very positive in our view of what's going to happen to the economy this year. We think it is going to substantially recover by the end of the year. That implies a growth rate that is pretty unprecedented. But it means 2 years of lost growth, essentially.
So this is a bounce back, it's not a boom?
It's a bounce back, yeah.
Last year, the economy shrank by almost 10% as economic activity collapsed at its fastest pace in around 300 years. But the bank expects growth this year to surge by more than 7% before slowing again. Our prospects are transformed. A year ago, the bank feared the unemployment rate could peak at 9.5%, leaving 3.1 million people out of work. It now thinks it will peak in the autumn at 5.5%, leaving 1.8 million people unemployed.
The Bank of England assumes that the vaccine rollout continues apace and that the government's roadmap out of lockdown goes according to plan, that restrictions lift entirely by the end of June and that household spending and business investment roar back. But the main reason that the prospects for employment look so much brighter than they did 3 months ago is the furlough scheme has been extended until the end of September.
For some, talk of a recovery feels premature. This play centre has 6 staff on furlough and is being kept alive by government grants. It reopens in 10 days' time, but will lose money for as long as there is social distancing. They're not sure if they'll pull through.
If I cannot do parties, we won't survive. If I can make it to August, yes, we get a little bit more trade in the 6 weeks holiday. It's so uncertain. The books, they don't add up. I can't plough, I haven't got any personal finance anymore to be able to plough into the company. We've used it.
Parts of the economy remain in deep freeze, but a thaw is underway. And if the bank is right about the recovery, then forget talk of negative interest rates. The market expects bank rate to begin to rise next year. Joel Hills, ITV News.
Now, there are new developments tonight in the hunt for the killer of the police community support officer, Julia James. The independent charity Crime Stoppers has offered a £10,000 reward for information that leads to a conviction. The 53-year-old's body was found in Woodland near her home in Kent 10 days ago. Officers are widening their search to include a number of new areas, including this abandoned coal mine nearby. Now, a father of 4 who was murdered as he went to help another man was described today as the best dad. James Gibbons was stabbed just metres from his home in Essex on Sunday night. He'd been celebrating the 2nd birthday of his twin daughters. 2 teenagers are being questioned over his killing, and Rebecca Barry is in Leadinburgh tonight. So, Rebecca, friends have been paying tribute.
Yeah, the people I've spoken to here say that James Gibbons was a lovely man and a brilliant dad to his 4 children. The 34-year-old had been having a barbecue to celebrate the birthday of his 2-year-old twins. He then went outside to try and help another man and was stabbed to death just metres from his home. Today we saw forensics officers searching through the drains, presumably looking for the murder weapon. 5 teenagers have been arrested, 3 boys and 2 girls, aged between 13 and 16. Earlier, I spoke to some friends of the family.
He's amazing, absolutely amazing. He's the best dad I know. Like, I've never seen such a close, happy family. Like, it's rare to see nowadays, it really is. And they were so happy, like so happy. Didn't deserve it at all. Nobody deserves it, but he didn't.
A lovely family man, would help anyone. Always a smile on his face, actually.
So bubbly, wasn't he?
He was so bubbly, yeah. Even my eldest daughter said, you know, Mummy, he was such a great daddy.
His family say that he was always prepared to help those less fortunate than himself, and they say they are absolutely broken at this pointless loss.
Rebecca Barry in Essex, thank you. Now, voting is still underway at polling stations across Britain, the biggest set of regional elections for 50 years. Polls close at 10 p.m. tonight, but among the first to vote were Boris Johnson and his fiancée Carrie Symonds. COVID measures mean that masks must be worn inside, with voters who also asked to bring their own pencil with them. Also voting early was Sir Keir Starmer, accompanied by his wife Victoria. The first results are expected around 2 o'clock in the morning. Well, meanwhile, out in the rain in Scotland was Nicola Sturgeon, where people are voting for all 129 MSPs, with the result being seen by many as a verdict on a possible second independence referendum. While in Wales, voters are choosing 60 members of the Senedd, the Welsh Parliament. Counting usually starts there at 10 p.m, but will begin in the morning due to COVID restrictions. Now, there are calls for greater community involvement to help encourage all groups to take a coronavirus vaccine when offered. New data shows that young adults are among those most likely not to take the jab, along with black adults. Experts say it's vital their fears are addressed and overcome. Here's our health editor, Emily Morgan.
There's no doubt vaccine uptake in this country has been phenomenal. Centres like this one have, since January, seen a steady stream of people coming to be immunised. But in the last few weeks, that stream has turned to a trickle. It seems younger people here are shunning it.
With the 80 plus, we've managed to vaccinate around 90%, so uptake was very high. We've seen a steady drop as we've gone down the ages, but then there's been a sudden drop off as we've reached the 40 to 50-year-olds. We're at less than 40% taking up the vaccine at the moment.
Uncertainty amongst the young appears to be a trend. The latest data show vaccine hesitancy on average across all age groups is pretty low at just 7%. Lowest amongst older people at only 1 to 2% in those over 55, and highest among those under 30 at 13%. Arranged by ethnicity, black people are the most hesitant at 30%.
Some of the main reasons people gave for not wanting the vaccine were fears about long-term health consequences, side effects, and questions about how well the vaccine works. Addressing those fears now is the big challenge.
You only have to speak to a few students to see how big a challenge that might be.
I'm more on the side of it's more when I need to get it done, then I'll get it done, because I like to travel.
I had concerns at first. I felt it was quite premature in how quickly they got it. The good has outweighed the bad, so those doubts are a little bit less there.
In the UK's biggest survey on vaccine hesitancy, Professor Heidi Larson also found black people are least likely to have it. She's adamant we need to refocus on certain communities.
I'm mostly concerned about the black population not getting enough attention and engagement and invested attention. I think with the younger population, we need a different strategy. You might just take that jab because you want to go to that rock concert.
Essex thinks it has the answer. Mobile vaccine vans are targeting areas with low uptake. It might take more than this, but it is a start. Emily Morgan, ITV News.
Still to come, the ITV Evening News, how Israel is hoping its COVID-safe beaches could attract Brits away from Spain and Portugal this summer. And the perfect fit, why this 82-year-old tailor has been called out of retirement. Those stories and more after the break. Join me then. Hello and welcome back. Now, the government is expected to publish a list tomorrow of countries where foreign holidays will be allowed once the ban is lifted. And one of them is almost certain to be Israel. It is well prepared to welcome back holidaymakers, especially Brits, and it's already advertising in the UK. From the beach, our senior international editor John Irvine reports.
The ancient port of Jaffa. In Greek mythology, it was on the rocks off here that Perseus used to Medusa's head to slay the Kraken and free Andromeda. Today, the State of Israel has been liberated from the clutches of the threat that is coronavirus, and one dividend may be a summer influx of European tourists, including Brits.
It's been a long year. Now that Tel Aviv is vaccinated,
the message is very much that this city and this country are now ready to receive visitors once more.
Tel Aviv Yafo municipality is incredibly eager for Brits to return to Israel. They're more than welcome. Brits are the 5th most important source of tourism for Tel Aviv, and they have everything here that they could want.
Israel has beaches on the Sea of Galilee and the Dead and Red Seas, but it's the ones on the Med Sea that are the big attraction. Tel Aviv alone has almost 9 miles of sand. These may well be the safest beaches in the Mediterranean this summer. That's because the vast majority of locals have been fully vaccinated, and the tourists who choose to come here and join them will have to have been as well. Tel Aviv's David Intercontinental Hotel has been locked down since March 2020, but that ends tonight when its doors reopen at long last. After all the gloom, there's optimism in the air here.
I really sense it's like an exodus out of our corona. And if you walk the streets of this fantastic city, it's quite remarkable. It's only a month ago where no one was really in the street. And now it's a party time. It's a party town.
To begin with, the travel corridor will have the odd stumbling block, but its creation and all is progress. A leap forward for those yearning for Mediterranean sun this summer. John Irvine, ITV News, Tel Aviv.
That's very nice, isn't it? Well, before dream holidays to places like that can become a reality, the government hasn't decided exactly how they might work. Airline companies are warning against an overabundance of caution, as they put it. They say forcing people who've been vaccinated to take further tests and quarantine will stop travel. And our consumer editor, Chris Choi, is here. So airlines are piling the pressure on, aren't they?
Yeah, tomorrow government is expected to announce that so-called green list of places we can visit where we probably won't have to quarantine when we get back to England. But some in the travel trade say the government is being illogical in insisting that even people who are fully vaccinated have these PCR COVID tests. Here's the boss of EasyJet.
Green should be green. In the green category of countries, they should be needed to have no restrictions whatsoever. And if you are vaccinated, which we have always said, could be an enabler to then basically not needed to having to do complicated and expensive PCR tests as well.
Well, it's not just EasyJet, but also the bosses of Jet2, BA, Heathrow Airport and Manchester Airport, all saying similar things today. The government defends its caution by saying there is this risk of importing COVID variants. Now, the price of those PCR tests can be up around £100. So it's significant that today the UK's largest holiday company, TUI, says it will subsidise costs, bringing them down to as little as £20 per passenger for some of its customers. Other airlines and some travel agents have similar schemes, and I expect many more to follow in the future. The whole idea of a foreign holiday has been a fantasy for months now. It's now edging much closer to reality, and we'll see the shape of that reality much more clearly tomorrow.
OK, looking forward to that, Chris. Thank you very much indeed. Other news now, the probation officer for the convicted terrorist who killed 2 people on London Bridge has told an inquest he had no idea that MI5 were investigating him. He assessed Usman Khan's risk of reoffending as low just days before the attack. But the inquest was told the security services were concerned that Khan was planning an attack. The Duke and Duchess of Sussex offered a rare glimpse of their son in the background of their Archwell Foundation website. It was posted alongside an appeal asking those wanting to mark Archie's 2nd birthday today to donate $5 to support a COVID vaccine charity. And 2 killer whales have been spotted off the coast of Cornwall. Experts believe this is the first sighting of the UK's only resident population of killer whales this far south. And finally, when you're a true master of your craft, perhaps you never really retire. Well, that's certainly the case for renowned tailor Raymond Lister. The 82-year-old, who's had many celebrity fans over the years, has been tempted out of retirement to work once again in Bradford. And he told Lucy Watson why he simply can't keep away.
It was once where the textile industry boomed, known as the wool capital of the world. Now Bradford boasts its own answer to Savile Row, with the opulence you might hope for.
A middle button there. No, keep your head normal.
And this is tailor Ray Lister, a master craftsman. With skills so in demand, he's been dragged out of retirement after a decade.
And I said, well, yes, I'll come in for a day. And then it led to Wednesdays, Fridays and Saturdays. And I don't know where it's going to lead to now. It depends on what my wife thinks about it.
But you can't keep away, can you?
No.
It was a trade he started at 15, then ran his own business for 60 years. He's now 82.
My mother was a tailoress and my uncle was a measure cutter. I love the trade and I wish I was younger that I could start again.
Do you really?
Over the years, he's been a tailor to the stars. This is where boxing champions, political titans and national treasures have all come, and Ray's talents have been missed.
He's the best. You cannot beat his tailoring. But they was asking, where's Raymond? Where's Raymond? So I had to bring him back out of retirement, and he's loving it.
He is back cutting his cloth for customers who love him.
He's a real people person and I love that about him.
It's not just someone off the high street trying to make you a blazer. There's that experience there and it makes it all the more worthy to come to.
And with that experience comes wisdom.
What are the do's and don'ts?
If you're a bit on the stout side, I wouldn't recommend a cheque.
This is not a man who'll be downing his tools anytime soon. Lucy Watson, ITV News, Bradford.
Master of his craft, wonderful. That's it for now. Tom's live from Edinburgh for News at 10 as the first election counts get underway. From me and all the team, bye-bye.